I vividly recall the day I first encountered Alex as though it unfolded just yesterday. I found myself nestled in a quaint dive cafe, nursing the most affordable cup of coffee available, attempting to untangle the web of my scattered thoughts and aspirations. That's when he strolled in, akin to a scene plucked from a cinematic masterpiece, albeit devoid of any dramatic lighting or accompanying melodies. Instead, the atmosphere was defined by the gentle jingle of the doorbell and the lingering aroma of stale coffee, mingled with his distinct aftershave. "Is the seat taken?" he inquired, gesturing towards the empty chair opposite me with a smile capable of inducing instant infatuation. "It looks free to me," I responded, striving for an air of nonchalance, despite the flurry of excitement his unexpected presence stirred within me. As conversation ensued, it became increasingly apparent that we shared a kinship that transcended mere acquaintance. Our interests aligned seamlessly, from indulging in mindless television series to engaging in spirited debates over preferred pizza toppings. Pineapple, anyone? Fast forward, and we transitioned from casual encounters to a genuine relationship that felt as though it had spanned lifetimes. Before we knew it, discussions of matrimony were underway. Yet, amidst the burgeoning romance, the specter of drama loomed. Alex's parents, a force to be reckoned with, greeted me with thinly veiled scrutiny upon our initial encounter. Their smiles, though ostensibly welcoming, betrayed an underlying assessment of my worthiness. "So, you're the girl Alex can't stop talking about," his mother remarked, her tone tinged with a coldness that sent shivers down my spine. "Guilty as charged," I retorted, masking any semblance of insecurity. However, their insistence on a prenuptial agreement struck a discordant note. While I harbored no ulterior motives, the notion of such a contract felt inherently distrustful. "I'll sign your prenup," I acquiesced, "but under one condition. If infidelity rears its ugly head, the transgressor foots the bill, $100,000. Alex's reaction mirrored a mixture of disbelief and discomfort. Yet I remained resolute. Past experiences had taught me the value of safeguarding against betrayal. We believed this compromise would quell any familial objections, but fate had other plans. One evening, nestled together on our beloved, albeit dilapidated couch, a symbol of our shared history, we found ourselves dreaming of a future beyond our means. Italy beckoned, its allure irresistible despite our financial constraints. "Think about it, Alex," I enthused, envisioning the culinary delights and artistic wonders awaiting us. However, reality reared its pragmatic head. Our bank account screams backyard camping, rather than romantic Venetian getaway, he quipped, punctuating his words with a playful squeeze. Undeterred, I proposed a strategy of thrift and sacrifice, teasingly targeting his beloved video games as potential casualties. Our banter echoed the essence of our relationship. Dreamers grounded in the practicalities of everyday life. In the midst of mundane chores and playful banter, the topic of starting a family surfaced, a prospect both exhilarating and daunting. "Emily, we need to talk about starting a family," Alex broached, his voice tinged with uncertainty. The weight of the conversation hung in the air as we navigated the uncertain terrain of parenthood, finding solace in the unwavering support of one another. How daunting could it be? I chuckled, a blend of nerves and affection coloring my laughter. Famous last words, babe. That's how it was with us. No matter the challenge, we tackled it hand in hand. Even as Alex's mother began dropping not-so-subtle hints about grandchildren at every opportunity, we maintained our united front. "Emily, darling, when will you give me some grandbabies?" "Time isn't standing still, you know," she'd remark, her tone sugary but her message anything but. I'd plaster on a smile, biting back retorts, and Alex would interject, "Mom, give it a rest, will you? These things take time." Yet, as the months passed, pressure mounted, not just from his mother, but from within. Our desire for a family clashed with the harsh reality of infertility. Ever since Judy, his mother, discovered her newfound hobby of tormenting me, our home transformed into a battleground, her weapon of choice a razor-sharp tongue. One Sunday lunch, as we gathered for what should have been a tranquil meal, Judy barged in uninvited, her presence casting a shadow over the room. "Well, isn't this quaint?" she began, dripping with sarcasm, her gaze sweeping over our modest spread. "Emily, dear, I can see you've been slaving away in the kitchen all morning," she remarked, a smirk dancing on her lips. Attempting to diffuse the tension, I offered a feeble smile, urging her to take a seat. But Judy wasted no time before launching into her assault. "You know, Emily," she began, her voice laced with condescension, "Mrs. Henderson's grandson was just born. It got me thinking, when are you and Alex going to give me some good news?" Heat flooded my cheeks, a mixture of humiliation and indignation burning within me. I sought solace in Alex's gaze, only to find him engrossed in his plate, a feeble attempt at avoidance. "Mom, come on," he muttered weakly. But his lackluster defense only fueled Judy's relentless tirade. "Alex, dear, I don't mean to be cruel," Judy continued, "but you're not running a charity here. You work hard for your money. Why waste it on Emily if she can't even fulfill her basic duties as a wife? A cleaning service and a cook would be far more efficient, don't you think?" Unable to contain my frustration any longer, I spoke up. "Judy, I am trying my best here. It's not like I don't want to have kids. And as for the house and my cooking, well, I didn't realize marriage was a service contract." But my words fell on deaf ears. Judy remained steadfast in her judgment, her criticisms cutting deeper with each passing day. She scrutinized every corner of our home, disparaging my appearance and undermining my role as a wife. With each visit, her comments grew sharper, her disapproval more pronounced. "Is that what you're wearing?" she'd sneer. "A wife should dress to please her husband. No wonder Alex is always exhausted. He has to come home to this." I attempted to defend myself, to reason with her, but it was futile. Judy had made up her mind, and nothing could sway her perception. And in that moment, the realization dawned upon me. I was fighting this battle alone. No matter what I said or did, Alex's stance, or lack thereof, remained the most painful blow. Each night, after Judy's departure, we'd engage in heated arguments. "Why won't you stand up for me, Alex? She's walking all over us, and you're just letting her," I'd plead. "Emily, she's old, set in her ways," he'd respond. "What do you want me to do? Kick my own mom out?" But it was clear this was more than just about Judy's disapproval. It was about us, our marriage, and whether we were strong enough to stand together or succumb to Judy's criticisms. As the days turned into weeks, I realized this wasn't merely a phase. It was a full-blown siege. If we didn't act soon, there might not be anything left to salvage. The strain extended beyond the home front. Alex himself began behaving oddly. It wasn't the typical stress from work. It was something deeper, something that twisted my stomach into knots. It began with the phone calls. Alex, who had always been transparent, suddenly started stepping out of the room every time he received a call, always from the same caller ID, John from work. One evening, trying to keep my voice casual, I asked, "Who's John from work?" Alex flinched, a telltale sign of unease. "Oh, just a new guy at the office. Lots of questions, you know," he replied, but his evasiveness only fueled my suspicions. Then there was his sudden interest in his appearance. Gone were the days of graphic tees and worn-out jeans. Now it was all crisp shirts, slacks, and cologne. "Since when did you care about smelling like a department store?" I teased. "Just felt like changing things up. No harm in that, right?" He replied a bit too quickly. The late nights at work became a regular occurrence. "Another long one, babe." He'd text, promising he wouldn't be late, but the clock would tick well past midnight before I heard his keys in the door. Try as I might, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. That's when I made the decision to hire a private detective. It felt like something out of a bad TV show, but I needed to know for sure. The evidence arrived in a plain brown envelope. Photos of Alex with another woman, their intimacy undeniable, their conversations captured in a recording, leaving no room for doubt. Sitting there, the evidence spread out before me, I felt a cold realization settle in. This was it, the proof that could anchor me in a stormy divorce, should it come to that. But I kept it all a secret, a painful burden I chose to carry alone. I wasn't ready to confront him, not yet. I needed a plan, a way to navigate the wreckage of our marriage with my dignity intact. The following days were a blur. Alex continued his charade, and I played along, the perfect wife with a smile plastered on my face and a heart breaking silently. But then, one day, as I passed by Alex's office, their voices caught my attention. Alex and Judy discussing me. And what I heard changed everything. I stood there, rooted to the spot, a mix of shock and anger boiling inside me. They were planning my exit from this family as casually as one would plan a grocery list. The hurt ran deep, but it sparked something else in me, a burning desire for revenge. They thought they could use me, discard me at their convenience. I'd show them I wasn't just some pawn in their twisted game. A few days later, during a family dinner that felt more like a farce than a meal, Judy brought up her upcoming birthday with the same smirk I had come to despise. "So, Emily dear, what are you planning for my birthday? Something special, I hope?" she inquired, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. I met her gaze, my face a mask of calm. "Actually, Judy, I was thinking of throwing you a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant. A night you won't forget," I replied. Her eyes lit up with greed, and she exchanged a quick, satisfied look with Alex. They thought they had me cornered, but little did they know I was already 2 steps ahead. "Emily, that sounds delightful. Just close family, you know, keep it intimate," Judy insisted, her voice saccharine. "Of course, Judy. It'll be our pleasure," I replied, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. The weeks leading up to Judy's 70th birthday felt like a slow march towards D-Day. Every smirk from her, every indifferent shrug from Alex fueled my resolve. The plan was simple yet bold: host a lavish dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant under the guise of a loving gesture, then drop the bombshell. But like any good plot, the devil was in the details. The tension at home was palpable the night before the party. Alex, oblivious to the storm brewing, was casually lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone. "Everything set for tomorrow?" he asked, not looking up. "Oh, you could say that," I replied, my tone belying the turmoil inside. The day arrived, and as guests filled the opulent dining room reserved for Judy's celebration, the air crackled with anticipation. My heart raced, not from nerves, but from the adrenaline of what was about to unfold. As we all settled in, the meal proceeded with forced mirth. Laughs were shared, stories exchanged, and then, as the dessert plates were cleared away, the waiter approached with the final act of the evening, the bill. Without missing a beat, I handed over my card, the gesture unnoticed by most. It was then Alex, with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes, decided to drop his bombshell. "Emily, I think it's time everyone knew. I'm tired of this of us. I want a divorce," he declared. The words hung in the air, a toxic cloud suffocating all other noise in the room. Before I could even process the full weight of his statement, Judy piped up, her voice sharp and unforgiving. "Well then, since that's out in the open, I think it's best you leave, Emily. We're celebrating family tonight, and well, you're no longer part of it." The room went deadly silent. Every eye was on me, waiting to see how I'd crumble. But I didn't. With a calm I didn't feel, I stood, nodded, and walked out without a word. The cool night air hit me like a slap as I made my way home. By the time I reached his apartment, a plan formed. I packed my essentials, the numbness giving way to a cold resolve. This was it, the end of one life and the start of another. As I zipped the last suitcase, my phone started buzzing, a relentless, insistent vibration that I initially ignored. But curiosity got the better of me. Judy's voice screeched from the other end, demanding I fix the payment issue. The sweet irony of it all. In my preparations for the inevitable, I had secured my exit strategy. I stood there, rooted to the spot, a mix of shock and anger boiling inside me. They were planning my exit from this family as casually as one would plan a grocery list. The hurt ran deep, but it sparked something else in me, a burning desire for revenge. They thought they could use me, discard me at their convenience. I'd show them I wasn't just some pawn in their twisted game. A few days later, during a family dinner that felt more like a farce than a meal, Judy brought up her upcoming birthday with her trademark smirk. "So, Emily dear, what are you planning for my birthday?" "Something special, I hope," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Actually, Judy, I was thinking of throwing you a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant. A night you won't forget," I replied, meeting her gaze with a mask of calm. Her eyes lit up with greed, and she exchanged a quick, satisfied look with Alex. They thought they had me cornered, but little did they know I was already 2 steps ahead. "Oh, Emily, that sounds so delightful. Just close family, keep it intimate," Judy chimed in, her voice oozing fake sweetness. "Of course, Judy. It'll be our pleasure," I replied, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. The weeks leading up to Judy's 70th birthday felt like a slow march towards D-Day. Every smirk from her, every indifferent shrug from Alex fueled my resolve. The plan was simple yet bold: host a lavish dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant under the guise of a loving gesture, then drop the bombshell. But like any good plot, the devil was in the details. The tension at home the night before the party was palpable. Alex, oblivious to the storm brewing, was casually lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone. "Everything set for tomorrow?" he asked, not looking up. "Oh, you could say that," I replied, my tone belying the turmoil inside. The day arrived, and as guests started to fill the opulent dining room reserved for Judy's celebration, the air was thick with anticipation. My heart raced, not from nerves, but from the adrenaline of what was about to unfold. Judy, ever the queen bee, basked in the attention, lavishing in the luxury of her surroundings. "Oh, Emily, you outdone yourself. This place is exquisite," she exclaimed, her voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear. As we all settled in and the meal proceeded with forced mirth, laughs were shared, stories exchanged. Then, as the dessert plates were cleared away, the waiter approached with the final act of the evening, the bill. He leaned in discreetly, informing us the dinner cost was $33,000. Without missing a beat, I handed over my card, the gesture unnoticed by most. It was then Alex, with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes, decided to drop his bombshell. "Emily, I think it's time everyone knew. I'm tired of this of us. I want a divorce," he announced, his words hanging in the air like a toxic cloud. Judy wasted no time in adding her poison. "Well, since that's out in the open, I think it's best you leave, Emily. We're celebrating family tonight, and well, you're no longer part of it." The room went deadly silent, every eye on me, waiting to see how I'd crumble. But I didn't. With a calm I didn't feel, I stood, nodded, and walked out without a word. The cool night air hit me like a slap as I made my way home. The finality of everything that had happened washed over me in waves. By the time I reached what used to be our shared home for the last time, a plan had formed. As I stepped through the door, the air crackled with tension, thick enough to cut with a knife. Alex and Judy were there, looking like they'd been arguing. "You've got some nerve showing up here after last night," Alex spat out, his face a mix of anger and disbelief. "Ungrateful wretch. You've embarrassed us in front of the whole city," Judy added, her voice sharp and unforgiving. But my mind was made up. I tossed the divorce papers on the table, the photos of Alex's infidelity on top. "You should be more concerned with this," I said, my tone steady. The color drained from Alex's face as he picked up the photos, his mother peering over his shoulder. Their outrage turned to shock, then to panic as they realized the extent of what I had. "And let's not forget the prenup, shall we?" I continued, my voice cold, final. "You cheat, you pay. $100,000 to be exact." Judy's face twisted into a snarl. "You wouldn't dare. You can't do this to us." "Oh, but I can, and I will," I replied, my tone unwavering. The begging turned to pleading, their words a desperate scramble to salvage what they could. But my mind was made up. In the end, Alex had no choice but to borrow the money from his parents to pay me. As I left that house for the last time, check in hand, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. After everything, I used the payout from Alex to put a down payment on a small but cozy place of my own. Life's quieter now, and I like it that way. Every once in a while, the grapevine tosses a juicy bit my way about Alex and Judy. But these days, it's just another piece of someone else's story. Life's simpler, quieter, and infinitely sweeter on this side of chaos.
I envy cats. While I'm struggling with the decision of whether or not to take in my mother-in-law, Megan, my cat lies there on his back, purring softly in his sleep. He's just so cute, whether he's eating or using the litter box, it's almost unfair. Even though he never comes when called, he always snuggles up to me when I'm crying, and I think that's unfair too. He's really good at getting people to do things for him, and I envy that so much. But it's because of such a free-spirited creature that we became a family. This is a story of the stormy time when our family gained one more person and one more cat. I'm Jennifer. I'm 35, working in the service industry, raising my 7-year-old son, Andrew. I work shifts, including weekends, and it's a busy life. My husband, Mike, who is 2 years older, also works in the service industry. Andrew has been attending a childcare center since he was 1 and now goes to after-school programs. The rule is that whoever has the time picks him up. We share household chores, and sometimes Mike makes dinner and waits for us. It's a loose rule that could quickly lead to trouble if either of us slacks off, but we've managed well so far because we're both serious by nature and grew up with working parents. Andrew is a very good boy, not just because I'm his parent, and he's never caused major trouble at the childcare center or school. He's introverted and doesn't have many friends, which always nags at me. But because he's been going to school without complaint, I haven't pursued it deeply. Although I am slightly worried about his introverted nature, our family relationship is good, and we live peacefully. However, lately, there have been issues with Mike's family. One weekday afternoon, on my day off, I was cleaning the house, leisurely thinking about how to spend the day. Then the doorbell rang, and 2 women's faces appeared on the screen. At first, I thought it was an insurance or religious solicitation, but I realized it was worse than that and sighed. Reluctantly, I opened the door, and a hand with long fake nails grabbed the door tightly. "Hello, Jennifer." "Hello." Blinking with eyelashes that looked like they could make a sound, Stella, my brother-in-law's wife, 3 years older than me, smiled. I reluctantly smiled back, and Stella pushed an elderly woman in front of her. "The thing is, I'm having lunch with friends today. So please take care of Megan until evening." "Again? You can't just drop this on me." I almost said I was troubled but stopped myself. Megan averted her eyes and looked down. Stella didn't care about our reactions. "Well, she's annoying, and everyone holds back because of her. You're free anyway, right?" "Thanks." "Hey!" Without waiting for my agreement, she left Megan and quickly went away. An awkward silence fell between Megan and me. "I'm sorry, Jennifer," she muttered apologetically, still looking down. "It's not your fault, Megan." I couldn't take it out on her, so that was all I could say. For about 3 years now, my brother-in-law Brian's family has been living with Megan at my in-laws' house. People might think that Brian's family is living there because Megan wanted them to, given how Stella chases Megan out for trivial reasons like today, but that's not true. 3 years ago, Brian was laid off due to poor business performance at his workplace. Stella had been a housewife since they got married, and they had a daughter, Alice, who was in the 6th grade. Brian, now 40, wasn't particularly skilled or efficient at his job, making it difficult for him to find new employment and avoid financial hardship. So, they moved in with Megan, who who had been living alone in her large house since her husband passed away. Megan was initially taken aback by the sudden demand for cohabitation, but she reluctantly agreed, feeling it was her duty since it was her son's incompetence that had led to this situation. For the first 6 months or so, Stella remained quiet. However, as time passed, she began to take advantage of Megan's introverted and non-confrontational nature, gradually becoming more and more overbearing. She left all the household chores to her, while she herself either lounged in the living room watching TV or went out to lunch with friends. Megan could manage cleaning and laundry, but she wasn't particularly good at cooking. "I can't stand Megan's terrible cooking," Stella often complained to me. I thought she should just cook herself, but it seemed she couldn't fathom any option that involved her putting in effort. Recently, Stella started inviting friends over for tea parties more frequently. Megan's house, decorated with antique furnishings from her late husband's collection, had a charming cafe-like atmosphere. Her friends seemed to love it. Encouraged by this, Stella wanted to invite even more friends over, but found her mother-in-law presence to be an inconvenience during her social gatherings. So, on my days off, Stella would unceremoniously send Megan over to my place. It was absurd to kick her out of her own home. Yet, she complied with her demands without protest. Megan, displaced by Stella, would sit on my living room sofa, sipping from her cup repeatedly while watching a shopping channel on TV, trying to hide her unease. Megan wasn't a bad person. But spending half a day with someone like Megan, who ended conversations with one-word responses, was exhausting. I couldn't just leave her alone, so I aimlessly busied myself in the kitchen, preparing dinner way ahead of time. I finished before noon, so while making sandwiches for lunch, I decided to speak to Megan. "Megan, is it okay if we have sandwiches for lunch?" "Yes, I'm sorry." "I don't mind, but are you okay with Stella treating this place like her own home while it's actually yours?" "Yes, well." Even when I pushed the conversation deeper, her vague responses would trail off into silence. I didn't like Stella, of course, but I also couldn't feel entirely sympathetic toward Megan, who simply let herself be pushed around. Mike was also bewildered by the situation at Megan's house. "I'm sorry about my family. You don't have to take them in next time." "It's easy to say that, but even if I refuse, Stella will just leave her here." "I see." Mike fell silent. He had a tendency to fall silent just like her mother. However, I've known Mike for a long time and believe we're on equal footing, so I didn't hesitate to press him for answers. "What does Brian think about all this? Does he just watch silently while Stella mistreats Megan?" "He does try to say something, but she blames him, saying, 'It's because you're so useless that we have to live with Megan,' so he ends up saying nothing." Pathetic. 2 years ago, Brian changed jobs, but since he started in a completely different field, his salary is as low as a beginner's. If Stella would work, they wouldn't need to live with his parents. "Yeah, but he's too scared to say that to her." Mike sighed, munching on a snack. "It's really pathetic. How did he manage to work in sales at his previous job with such a pathetic personality?" "Oh, that's why he got fired." This way, both Brian and Megan are just being taken advantage of. After these troubling days, one day, my husband and I finally had a day off together, and we were relaxing at home. Suddenly, we got a hysterical call from Stella. Her voice pierced my ears like a ringing noise, and all I could make out was, "The cat! The cat!" Mike reluctantly got up and went to his parents' house. I decided to wait with Andrew while playing a board game, but Mike didn't come back for a long time. I wondered what they were arguing about this time. I started getting anxious and looked at the clock. Just as I was about to start preparing dinner, Mike finally came back. He was with Megan, who was holding a dirty towel. "Megan?" I was so surprised I couldn't help but shout, and Megan looked up at me with sad eyes. Then, in a cute voice, "Meow." "What?" "Meow." She meowed 3 more times in front of my confused face. No, she wasn't meowing. I took a closer look at the towel she was holding. The towel moved slightly, and a white tail peeked out. Then, blue sapphire-like eyes appeared and looked at me. "Meow." "What? A cat?" I let out a strange voice in surprise, and Megan looked away awkwardly. "So, Stella is angry because she brought home a kitten." "Well, yeah." Mike took a big sip of the water I had prepared and let out a huge sigh. According to him, Megan found a kitten that wandered into the yard a week ago and took it in. Its eyes were open, but at about a month old, it was too young to survive on its own. They didn't know where it had come from or if it had a mother. But if they left it alone, it would quickly become prey for the crows. So, she consulted Brian and his wife. However, Stella was furious. She ordered Megan to throw it away immediately. But she couldn't abandon the kitten and secretly kept it in the shed, Stella discovered yesterday, making her even angrier. "You touched that filthy cat, so you should stay in the shed too," she said, and made Megan spend the night in the shed. And this morning, Stella called us to take care of the cat and Megan. Seeing her and the kitten wrapped in a blanket in the shed, Mike couldn't hold back his anger. Stella's argument was that she didn't want the cat dirtying her stylish, beautiful home. Unusually, Megan stood her ground. "I'll clean and take care of it properly," she pleaded, but Mike, "This is my mother's house, so if you can't respect her wishes, you should leave," said angrily, and she kept cursing and refused to listen. Stella, who completely misunderstood that the house belonged to her, and Brian, who didn't admonish his wife, finally made even the usually mild-mannered Mike furious. He cursed at Brian and his wife, and in his rage, brought Megan and the kitten home with him. It was all so horrible, I was at a loss for words. "I'm really sorry for doing things without consulting you first. But I just couldn't leave Mom in that place." There's no way around it. I may not be fond of Megan, but I'm not so heartless that I would leave her, an innocent woman, stuck in a storage room. I get why Stella would be upset about suddenly bringing a cat home. But that house is not theirs. You should just kick out Stella and her family who are freeloading there. I told Mom the same thing. But she wouldn't listen, saying it's Brian's fault for being unreliable and that it would be unfair to Alice if they lost their home. No way. Sure, if Brian and his family got kicked out, they'd be in a tough spot, and his daughter Alice would suffer. But that doesn't justify Megan being pushed out of her own home. Brian is a grown man. He should take responsibility for his own situation. As I stood there in silent confusion, Mike pleaded with such intensity that he nearly bumped into the table. "Jennifer, I know you have issues with my mom. But please, I'm begging you. I want to take her in. I can't bear seeing her neglected and weakened by Brian and his family. I'll minimize the burden on you as much as possible, please." Mike. Mike's voice trembled as he begged for my forgiveness. Mike, who was usually so silent and reserved, was desperately pleading with me. It wasn't fair. How could I possibly refuse him when he was like that? I stood up quietly and left the living room. In the hallway, Megan and Andrew were looking at a cat sleeping in a cardboard box. "I'm sorry for the trouble." "Huh?" Megan murmured softly, not taking her eyes off the cat. "I'm sorry I caused trouble for you and Stella by wanting to get a cat." "That's..." I knew Stella would be angry, but I just couldn't abandon this cat. The cat we had 7 years ago also wandered into our yard just like this one. "Oh!" I remembered that there had been a cat at my in-laws' house that died just before Andrew was born. Mike had been taking care of it since he was in high school, and his parents had adored it. When this cat looked at me and meowed, I thought it might be the same one that had come back with a new coat. Even though that's impossible. She gave a sad smile. So that's why she didn't give up on it. She usually just did whatever Stella said. I felt a tightness in my chest at this first glimpse into Megan's heart. We'll find a new home for it. Until then, if I say we'll keep it in the shed, Stella should be okay with it. Megan picked up the kitten from the cardboard box and stood up. I had to say something. But before I could find the words, Andrew spoke. Let's live together. What? I couldn't help but voice my surprise at Andrew's suggestion. Andrew, who was so shy and not very close to Megan, had said something so unexpected. Megan seemed just as shocked and stiffened. Mom, is that okay? Andrew looked up at me anxiously. Deciding something this important on the spur of the moment might lead to regret later. But I already knew I couldn't say no. Can you promise to take good care of the cat with your grandmother? Yes. Andrew looked straight at me and responded firmly. It was the first time Andrew had ever shown such strong determination to do something. It was the first time Mike had ever asked me for something like that. And it was the first time Megan had ever stood her ground on something. Really, like father, like son. But somehow, I felt that I could get along with Megan too. I had no choice. As Mike's wife and a mother, I had to make a decision. Megan, if you'd like, please come live with us along with the cat. The kitten meowed in response, surprising Megan. From there, everything happened quickly. When I told Brian and his wife that we were taking Megan in, they were surprisingly resistant. But their hesitation seemed to come from fear of being kicked out of their home, and when I assured them they could stay, they were overjoyed and agreed. They easily accepted the conditions that Megan would still own the house and that they had to maintain it and get along with the neighbors. They probably weren't thinking too deeply about it. While helping Megan move, Stella, with a sly smile. That's what you get for pretending to be a good person. Poor you. Whispered. I was exasperated by how nasty she could be, but I just played along and focused on what I needed to do. I did think it was wrong for her to be kicked out, but I kept quiet since Mike seemed to have a plan. Brian and his wife's daughter, Alice, a middle schooler, watched with a sullen face as Megan got into our car without saying a word. When Megan officially became a part of our family, she often sat in the corner of the room, looking either apologetic or uncomfortable. However, with the new kitten boldly running around the living room and getting into all sorts of mischief, Megan inevitably started spending more time in the living room as well. True to his word, Mike took care of everything around Megan. That said, Megan was healthy and capable of doing everything herself, and she took on the chores and laundry as a house guest. Megan was meticulous and loved cleanliness, so her room cleaning was impeccable. Having previously maintained an old and spacious family home all by herself, cleaning a modern, compact house seemed like no trouble at all for Megan. Even though we had a long-haired cat, there was hardly any fur to worry about. The garden, which quickly got overgrown with weeds, always had neatly trimmed grass, making the whole house look brighter. However, as Stella mentioned, cooking wasn't Megan's forte, so Mike and I continued to share the cooking duties. At first, I was unsure of her preferences in seasoning, so even preparing one dish was nerve-wracking. Noticing this, Mike divided the tasks. I took care of breakfast, and he handled dinner. He researched recipes from cookbooks and videos, ensuring the whole family could enjoy the meals, and cooked them every night. Mike's proactive efforts to keep his promise made him reliable, and I felt our relationship had improved compared to before Megan moved in. Andrew was completely captivated by the kitten and quickly became friends with Megan as well. Incidentally, it was Andrew who named the cat Bella. Thanks to Megan, he didn't have to attend after-school programs and spent more time with her. The quiet afternoons spent with Megan and the adorable kitten became a comfortable refuge for him. He started inviting friends over after school to show off the kitten and began sharing lively stories about school. Despite this, there was still a distant, cautious atmosphere between Megan and me, as if we were both trying to read each other's expressions. Conversations still didn't flow naturally, even when we were in the same room. Then, one day, I witnessed something surprising. That morning, feeling unusually thirsty, I woke up earlier than usual. As I headed to the living room for a drink of water, I found Megan already dressed and burying her face in the kitten's fluffy white belly. Bella, you're so cute. Why are you so adorable first thing in the morning? From Megan's mouth, which usually only uttered the bare minimum, words kept spilling out. As I watched in amazement, Megan lifted her face from the kitten's belly and our eyes met. There was a moment of silence. I was the first to laugh. I couldn't help it. Megan's face, covered in fur and filled with surprise, was just too funny. Megan, hiding her blushing face behind the kitten. "Please don't tell Mike," said. Getting to see this charming side of Megan made me feel more comfortable talking to her, even if the conversation didn't flow easily. Perhaps because she had been caught in her most embarrassing moment, Megan gradually started to joke around a bit. Over time, the wall between Megan and me disappeared, and by the time half a year had passed since she moved in, we had all settled into life as a family of 4 with 1 cat. Life with just the 3 of us wasn't bad, but since Megan and the kitten arrived, I felt there was more laughter and relaxation in our home. It really felt like all's well that ends well. Meanwhile, you'd think Brian's family would be happy without the gloomy Megan, but that didn't seem to be the case. Nearly a year after we started living together, Brian and his wife suddenly showed up at our house. "Could you return Megan to us already?" "What?" Out of nowhere, with a face full of entitlement, Stella demands Megan's return, leaving both Mike and me, and even Megan herself, utterly confused. "Hey! You kicked Megan out in the first place, didn't you?" "Don't use such violent words. It makes us look like the bad guys," Stella denies with a half-smile, which only makes my anger flare up. "You two are truly the bad guys." "Well, Megan was the one who brought home a cat without consulting the family." "You." "But I'll forgive her for that now." "Megan, wouldn't you rather come back to your own home instead of living cramped up in this small house?" Megan looks up at Mike and me with a troubled expression. A year ago, I might have been annoyed that she couldn't speak her mind. But now, knowing Megan's character, I understand that it's not that she doesn't want to live with us, she's just being considerate. "Megan, don't listen to these selfish people. They probably just can't keep up with the housework, or maybe Brian lost his job again and they need money, right?" When I bring up Brian, his shoulders jerk up. "How did you?" Did I hit the nail on the head?" Seems I was right. There's no way they're coming to take Megan back out of pure goodwill, not after treating her like a burden all this time. "Hey! How useless can you be?" But... Stella, with a scary face, jabs the unreliable Brian in the side. Then she turns to us, adopting a smug posture. "That's right. Brian got fired again because Megan failed at raising him. So you take responsibility." "Are you nuts? Blaming a 43-year-old man's actions on someone else?" "Shut up!" Stella glares at me with bloodshot eyes. Then, in a tone I've never heard before, she pleads with Megan sweetly. "Megan, the house is in chaos because you haven't been cleaning. You don't want your husband's precious collection to get dirty, do you? We're not asking you to work and earn money. Just like before, if you could just hand over your pension as living expenses? Please? But Megan falls silent, looking troubled. Sensing Megan's distress, Bella, who has grown into a full-grown cat, walks over with a cute meow. Stella's eyes light up. Wait, is this that filthy kitten? She's so cute now. It's no wonder Stella is excited. Bella is a beautiful Persian cat with long, white fur and striking jade eyes. Even without a pet owner's bias, she's grown into an undeniably gorgeous cat. If she had grown this cute, you should have told me sooner. She'd fit right in with my antiques. There's no way I'm letting someone who matches cats with furniture take away an important family member. If Megan promises to take care of everything and not break any antiques, she can come back with this cat. That way, neither Megan nor Jennifer can complain, right? You really are. Come here, come here. Ignoring my anger, Stella reaches out to Bella. Sensing something off, Bella hisses at her. Feeling threatened, Stella screams and falls backward. Her large rear hits the cold entryway tiles with a thud. Ouch! Letting out an ugly scream. What is this cat doing here? It's completely unruly. How can you keep such a badly behaved cat? Call animal control right now. She raised her fist at the cat. At that moment, enough is enough! Megan yelled at Stella in a voice lower than I had ever heard before. I was shocked to see Megan so angry for the first time. The one who needs discipline is you. You're worse than a cat. What? Enough. Mike, give me the papers. Sure. Hearing Megan's command, Mike brought an envelope and pen from the living room. Megan took the papers out of the envelope and wrote something on them. Then she grabbed her bag from the entrance and slipped past Brian and his wife, heading outside. As they stood there in stunned silence, Mike spoke clearly. Mom went to see a real estate agent. She's going to sell the house. What? This means the house you're living in will be torn down in 3 months. What? Brian and his wife opened their mouths wide in shock. Remember when she said she'd kick you out if you didn't keep the house clean? But just for not cleaning. Yes, that's what Mom thought too. But you were so awful that she finally woke up. She realized that spoiling you only made you more foolish. To the point where you'd suggest sending a living cat to animal control. Ugh! It's nearly impossible to evict shameless people like you from a house, so she decided to get rid of the house itself. The land has already been sold, so construction is unavoidable. What? No way, no way! Yes, Mike had been planning this ever since he took in Megan. He knew Brian and his wife would never change or treat the house with respect. All that remained was her decision. Brian and his wife's foolishness pushed her to finally act. Over a cat! You're abandoning your own son over a cat? Brian shouted with his face turning red. Alice is almost in high school. You're abandoning your own granddaughter too? Alice will stay with Stella's sister and her husband. What? Brian and his wife looked even more shocked at Mike's revelation. Alice has despised you since you kicked Mom out. You barely talk to her anymore. That's just her teenage phase. Blaming it on her teenage phase without facing her is exactly your problem. Stella's sister and her husband were also troubled. They couldn't leave their sweet niece in such a cruel home. Stella looked pale and wanted to say something. But no usual vulgar words came out. Mom will cover Alice's school and living expenses. You just worry about yourselves. You're being evicted next month. Oh, no! Mom has no reason to support you anymore. You'd better go home and start packing. Mike pushed the two dazed people out. After a while, Megan returned home with a refreshed look. I thought she might be shocked about demolishing the house. Actually, those antiques were a pain to clean and handle. But she smiled and said, "Of course, Brian and his wife didn't want to leave their in-laws' house and held out until the very last moment." However, Mike's burly friends packed up their belongings and took them to a storage unit. They left the couple at a nearby motel. Since both of them are still of working age, they should be able to find a job, even if it's day labor, and eventually rent an apartment. Thus, from living with Megan to dismantling the in-laws' house and supporting his niece, Mike's plan was executed perfectly. I was enamored with the reliable side of usually quiet. Now, even he is completely obsessed with the cat. "Bella, your belly is so fluffy like angel wings today." Meow. "Why are you so cute? Are you an angel who descended to earth?" Meow. There is no trace of the silent, cool Mike when he buries his face in Bella's belly and closes his eyes with a happy expression. I wondered if he didn't send Brian and his wife to hell for our sake, but for the cat. Maybe I raised him wrong. Megan, watching from the side, is fed up. "No, you're just the same. Thanks to Bella, every day is fun." Andrew laughed cheerfully. "Well, I agree with that. Bella is Megan's savior and the idol who brings more smiles to our home. It's hard to imagine a time without Megan and Bella." Meow. Bella meowed with a smug look as if to say, "Of course." Today, too, our family is enjoying happy days surrounding our pure white cat. "You should get a divorce immediately. When we tested your daughter, I have to tell you this as a friend." After saying that, Paul revealed something shocking. His words left me stunned and unable to hide my agitation. "What? What do you mean?" Paul is a pediatrician. We are at his hospital, but this isn't an examination room, just a private room. It seems to be a place where unused equipment is stored. Paul brought me here and strongly suggested I get a divorce. But more than that, he revealed an astonishing fact about my daughter, Kate. Listening in disbelief, I saw Paul steady his expression as if he had made up his mind. "This might be hard for you to hear, Rebecca, but please stay calm and listen." Later, I filed for divorce as Paul advised. Due to a conflict with Tom at that time, I had to hastily move out. But perhaps it was a necessary step for a new beginning. My name is Rebecca. I live with my husband, Tom, and my daughter, Kate. In reality, Kate and I are not related by blood. She is the child of Tom and his ex-wife. I met Tom through a friend when I was 29 and he was 33. We bonded over our shared love for movies and food and eventually got married. People around me warned that marrying someone with a child would be tough, but I accepted it with determination. Due to a gynecological condition, I am unable to have children. I thought having a child would only ever be a dream, but Kate, a sweet girl, became my daughter. I was overjoyed. When we got married, Kate was only 3 years old and had little memory of her biological mother. His ex-wife passed away due to complications after childbirth. So, Kate treated me like her real mother and grew attached to me. While I felt happiness, I also felt a sense of guilt towards her late mother, so we all visit her grave every year. During these visits, Kate always says, "I'm so lucky to have 2 moms." Kate. Kate is kind and very sweet. I always held her little hand, determined to make her happy. This year marks our 5th visit to the grave. Kate is now 8 years old. As usual, we offered our prayers together. "Hey! Hurry up! let's go!" Tom called out from a distance. Though he was visiting his late wife's grave, Tom quickly paid his respects and was ready to leave. Over the past few years, I've started to feel that Tom's behavior was a bit cold. If I didn't prompt him, he wouldn't even think of visiting the grave, which made me feel increasingly uncomfortable. I wondered if it was because he was a man, but even so, it seemed too cold. Tom was still kind to me, which made the disparity even more noticeable. After getting married, I realized Tom tended to neglect Kate. He works in pharmaceutical research and is always busy. It seems he left all the child rearing to his ex-wife and didn't know much about Kate. Even at the beginning of our marriage, we had exchanges like this. "Where are Kate's health records?" Health records? Where could they be? Do we need them? Of course! They contain important information about her birth and vaccinations. Tom had no sense of responsibility as a parent. I eventually found the health records after a lot of searching, only to discover that more than half of the vaccinations she needed by age 3 had not been done. Panicked, I took her to get the shots. Vaccinations are indeed a moral obligation, but Tom simply prioritized work and forgot about them, which was exasperating. It was unbelievable that someone working in a pharmaceutical company could be so indifferent about these things. I couldn't trust Tom with Kate's care, so I took the primary role in looking after her. Taking care of sweet Kate wasn't a burden, it was a joy. However, when I realized that young Kate didn't feel her father's love, my heart broke. "Dad, he doesn't like me?" "That's not true, Kate. Dad is just busy with work. He cares about you a lot." "Yeah, right. Thanks, Mom." Sweet Kate. Just hearing her call me Mom makes me so happy. But when Kate turned 10, Tom started to change a little. He offered to help with dinner. For me, who had started working part-time again, his offer was a relief. Maybe Tom finally felt he needed to do something as a father and husband. Although I thought it was a bit late, I decided to accept his offer. "Thanks, Tom. Can I leave it to you on your days off?" "Yeah, of course." Looking forward to it. I expect great things. Tom, who had lived alone during his single days, was indeed a good cook. My burden was lightened, and my distrust towards Tom eased. I felt reassured that Tom also valued our family. But despite spending more meal times together as a family, Kate's mood started to change. Usually, everything was fine, but sometimes she would get upset and take it out on me. At first, I didn't understand why. Her teacher said there were no changes in her behavior, and she played happily with her friends. She had no complaints about her extracurricular activities or tutoring. But after observing her for a while, I figured it out. Kate sometimes felt unwell. That was why she was in a bad mood. She would have stomach issues and lock herself in the bathroom, struggle to wake up in the morning, or occasionally stay awake because she couldn't sleep. These bouts of illness happened about once every 3 months, and I thought she should get checked, so I consulted Tom. But it's not the same sickness each time, right? It's just occasional bad days. Well, that's true, but if she gets better quickly, it's not an illness. Don't worry. Rebecca, you worry too much. Tom didn't seem to take it seriously, and I began to think I was overthinking it. Indeed, it wasn't a constant issue, and the symptoms were varied. Even when I took her to the hospital, they said it was stress-related and prescribed some medicine. But I'm going to bed. What? It's only 7 p.m. I'm really sleepy. Good night. Kate rubbed her eyes and went to her room without taking a shower. Tom, who was doing the dishes, said, "Going to bed early and waking up early is a good thing." "Good night," he responded cheerfully. Didn't he think it was strange that she wanted to sleep 2 hours earlier than usual? I thought it might be pointless to consult Tom. The next day, I decided to take Kate to a different hospital. Kate, who looked exhausted, and I walked into the examination room together. I was surprised to see someone I didn't expect. "Paul?" "Right. You changed your name after getting married. Long time no see." Paul, looking at the medical records, smiled. Paul, who went to the same high school as me, had become a pediatrician and worked at this hospital. I never thought I'd meet an acquaintance here. Paul, who was kind and secretly popular in our class, was still gentle and calm. Feeling reassured by the unchanged Paul, I reported Kate's recent symptoms. "Her body doesn't show any particular signs of illness, but would you like to run some tests?" "Yes, please." Hearing this, Kate, who was sitting next to me, said, "Tests?" with an unhappy look on her face. "Don't be upset. It's important to check your health, Kate." "Okay. Good girl." Although she was almost 11, she was still just a child. Kate smiled innocently at my words. Paul also smiled at our interaction. "You know, you two really look alike when you're together." "What?" "You're like two peas in a pod." Hearing that, Kate and I exchanged glances. Even though we're not related by blood, we've grown to resemble each other as a family. It filled me with a warm feeling. Both Kate and I felt glad we came to the hospital today. The tests were over, and we were told to come back for the results later. Paul, at the end, said, "If any symptoms bother you again, please come back." That made me feel reassured. However, in the end, the test results showed no abnormalities. Even after that, whenever Kate felt unwell, we would go to this hospital. Each time, Paul would conduct tests, and each time, the cause would remain unknown. Paul's expression grew more concerned with each visit. A child feeling unwell once every few months isn't unusual. Doing tests each time seems like a hospital scam, don't you think? But what if something's really wrong with Kate? I don't know, Rebecca. I think you're an easy target for these doctors. Hearing such insulting words about Paul made me furious. But I held back because I never wanted to argue with my husband in front of Kate. Seeing parents fight is one of the most distressing things for a child. Days passed dealing with occasional unexplained illnesses. Kate had turned 12 before we knew it. After a year of finding nothing, I started to think it was just common health issues during growth. One day, we went to the hospital as usual to hear the test results. While waiting in the lounge, Paul came over to me. He asked me to follow him and led us to a private room. It was a bit cluttered, seemingly used for storage most of the time. For about a year, we've done 5 tests in total. Yes. Did you find something in Kate's test this time? Calm down, Rebecca. Paul, with an unusually stern face, faced my anxious look. Then, with a serious expression, he said, "I think I know you quite well, Rebecca. You're an honest and kind person, not good at lying." Why are you saying this all of a sudden, Paul? Rebecca, this is advice from a friend. Paul said something unbelievable. You need to divorce your husband immediately. Something terrible has been discovered through Kate's tests. What do you mean? I was shocked by the word divorce, but the mention of Kate heightened my anxiety. Paul, with a serious look, continued. You need to separate Kate from him right away, or something irreparable might happen. That's why I want you to consider divorce or at least separation to keep her away from him. Irreparable? What does that even mean? Paul quickly explained. The first time you came here, we did a test. It revealed the presence of sleeping pills in Kate's body. What? Sleeping pills? Has Kate ever used sleeping pills or sleep aids? I shook my head at Paul's question. Paul, after a moment of contemplation, spoke again. This might be hard for you to hear, Rebecca, but I need you to stay calm. Paul explained that with each test, some form of medication was detected in Kate's system. Sometimes it was a laxative, sometimes painkillers, and sometimes sleeping pills. It seemed likely that over-the-counter drugs were given by a family member, but the medical forms didn't indicate any medication. According to my accounts, we came to the hospital suddenly due to her symptoms, and there was no report of giving her any drugs beforehand. Furthermore, she showed symptoms like diarrhea when laxative components were found, and fatigue and sleepiness when sleeping pills were detected, clearly indicating drug-induced. This led to suspicions that Kate was being given medication by one of her parents, causing her to feel unwell. Naturally, I was also under suspicion. However, to continue the investigation without alerting me, the detection of the drug's components was kept hidden from me as well. Then, in the fifth test, it was confirmed once again that Kate was indeed being given some kind of medication regularly. Upon receiving these results, Paul decided to take personal action. It was a risky move for a doctor, but it showed how much he trusted me. Isn't Rebecca's current husband working for a pharmaceutical company? Huh? How did you know that? Sorry, I checked your health insurance card. The pharmaceutical company where he works has had a bad reputation with the medical community for a while. I had a bad feeling about it. I felt a chill run down my spine. Do you think Tom could be giving something to Kate? I can't rule out the possibility. Kate tends to come over on Mondays or after holidays. Is there anything different about those days? Something different. When he said that, I realized something. On holidays, Tom always cooks dinner. Our kitchen is not easily visible from the living room, so it's possible he could be doing something without us noticing. Paul's words and my growing suspicion towards Tom were becoming more and more believable. It couldn't be his own child. But seeing his behavior during visits to his ex-wife's grave and his indifference towards Kate until recently, I couldn't completely dismiss the possibility. Balancing my desire to trust Tom and my need to protect Kate, it was obvious which side the scales would tip towards. I wanted to protect Kate. Determined, I looked Paul straight in the eyes. I couldn't ignore this issue. A few days later, I immediately purchased a child surveillance camera online. I decided to use it to monitor Tom's actions in the kitchen. I camouflaged it with a box to avoid detection by Tom. Honestly, I had hoped it wouldn't capture anything suspicious. My feelings for Tom hadn't changed, and I wanted to believe he wouldn't do such a thing to his own daughter. But that hope was shattered a month later. One night, Kate experienced some abnormal symptoms. She had an upset stomach and kept running to the bathroom. Sensing something was wrong, I quickly checked the surveillance camera. What I saw was horrifying. Tom, preparing dinner as usual on the weekend. Taking something out of his pants pocket when he thought we weren't looking. A small bottle containing some kind of powder. He put it into one of the dishes. It was Kate's special soup bowl. Mixing the powder into the soup, his expression was not clearly visible from the camera. A mix of disbelief and anger surged through me. How could he give Kate something harmful? After saving the video, I went to the freezer. Since Tom cooked, we had been freezing Kate's leftovers. Frozen packs of Kate's soup. The remnants of that powder should be there. I made sure to push it further back to avoid Tom finding it. This was advice from Paul. Video alone would only be circumstantial evidence, so physical evidence was also needed. I calmed myself and prepared a glass of water for Kate, who had just come out of the bathroom. "Are you okay, Kate?" Yeah. This happened before, right? Maybe my stomach is just sensitive. Yeah. Maybe. Kate, looking exhausted and drinking the water, seemed in pain. I didn't want to hurt Kate by letting her think it was her own body's fault. I firmly vowed to protect her from harm, even if it was her own father. I gathered all the evidence and prepared to confront Tom. On Saturday, as soon as Kate went out to meet her friends as planned, I seized the moment to speak to Tom. What? You said you had something important to talk about. Before that, I questioned Tom, who was sitting on the sofa with his usual expression. Tom, are you hiding something from me? Not just from me, but from Kate too. Hiding something? What do you mean? For a moment, Tom's eyes flickered. I didn't miss that and said, "Take a look at this." Pulling out my smartphone. I had recorded the footage on my smartphone. The screen showed Tom putting something into a powder. Tom was shocked when he saw it, and I spoke in a firm tone. What is this? What are you giving to Kate? It's a misunderstanding. This is a supplement. A sample from my workplace. I had anticipated such an excuse. But to say it so smoothly. He must have been thinking about how to get away with it even if he was found out. Clenching my teeth, I said, "Lies won't work. I've already had that meal preserved and analyzed." Preserved? Rebecca, what are you doing? A laxative was found. Tom, are you giving laxatives to a child as a supplement? That is. Tom's eyes darted even more. Feeling anger towards Tom for trying to lie, I said mercilessly, "Excuses won't work. We've been finding substances in Kate's tests at the hospital." What? Rebecca, you said the tests were clear. That's why So you continued mixing the drugs? Tom fell silent at my loud voice. That silence was like admitting to it. I wasn't lying when I said the tests were clear because that's what I was told. Maybe I should be grateful to Paul for this. Thanks to him, I could face Tom without any hesitation, even though I'm not good at lying. I asked Tom the most important question. Why? Why are you doing this? What do you gain from it? Knowing he couldn't talk his way out of it anymore. Tom took a deep breath and said something unbelievable. You're exaggerating, Rebecca. I just did a little experiment on Kate. What? An experiment? What I gave to Kate was a trial product my company is developing. It's like a clinical trial. I couldn't understand what Tom was saying. He didn't even look apologetic, so he might not think he did anything wrong. My face turned pale. You were giving that to Kate? Calling it that is rude. It's a new drug packed with our latest technology. It's a good thing to give it to her. A good thing! I pounded the table in frustration. You gave her laxatives and caused diarrhea even though she wasn't constipated, gave her sleeping pills and disrupted her routine. And you call that a good thing? Calm down. This is a necessary human experiment. Human experiment? Tom's laughter scared me. Maybe I was dealing with a truly dangerous person. A feeling of fear welled up. But I had to be brave. If I lost here, Kate would be in danger. An experiment? You just said you did an experiment on our daughter. That's right. It's hard to tell how much works with just animals. We could recruit for clinical trials. But that's expensive and time-consuming. With my own daughter, I can monitor her regularly and there's no added responsibility. It's an easy and cheap method, right? My body was trembling. It wasn't from fear. I was shaking with anger. I couldn't believe that Kate had suffered so much because of this.
Don't be ridiculous. Tom, you aren't even a parent. You aren't even human.
That's too much, Rebecca. The Tom standing in front of me no longer looked like a person. He reached out to me with a sickly sweet voice.
I love you, Rebecca. That's why I never gave it to you. You knew it was dangerous, so you didn't give it to me? Then why did you give it to Kate? Because Kate is my daughter. It's only natural for a daughter to help her father with his experiments.
His words were treating our child as his property. This man isn't a father. He's not even human. There's no point in saying anything more. I handed Tom the papers I had been hiding.
This is pointless. Let's get a divorce. A divorce? Of course, I'll be taking Kate. With all this evidence, there's no way you'll get custody. And you just gave another damning statement.
I showed him the divorce papers along with a hidden voice recorder. When I pressed play, Tom's horrible words filled the room again. I stopped it quickly, not wanting to hear more than necessary, and for the first time, Tom looked shaken.
No! I don't want a divorce.
Now he doesn't want a divorce? I looked at Tom with cold eyes. I've already signed my part, now you sign it too.
But I love you, Rebecca. I don't love you anymore.
I said it firmly. There's no love left for Tom, who has only hurt Kate. It will be hard for Kate from now on. But I can't leave her with someone who talks about human experiments. No, Rebecca.
Don't cry. Just sign it.
As Tom started crying, I felt my emotions growing colder. Tom had loved me before and after our marriage. But his love was twisted. I can't accept such love. After Tom signed, I took the divorce papers and left the house. I drove straight to the courthouse. Just as I was about to submit the papers.
No! I can't! I won't let you! Tom!
Tom arrived the moment I handed out the paper. Tom had followed me, probably in his car. He was completely mentally broken, ignoring the stares of others. He clung to my shoulder.
Let's try again! I'll never do anything like that again! Stop it, Tom!
With so many people watching, I was flustered. The courthouse staff just observed us. Maybe they see family drama like this often. But when Tom tried to forcefully pull me away, someone finally intervened. That person was Kate. What are you doing here? It was our daughter, Kate, the victim in this whole ordeal. She stepped between us and leaned towards me. I thought this might happen, so I came here first. It's okay. I'm ready for this.
Kate.
I was surprised by her sudden support. I had told Kate everything beforehand. The hospital results. The cause of her health problems. And everything Tom had done. It was hard to tell her the truth, but she deserved to know. When Kate learned everything, she was shocked but also seemed to understand. So that's why I felt sick only when Dad cooked.
Kate, did you know?
Yeah. I'm not a little kid anymore. It's astonishing how children grow up so fast. Come to think of it, she'll be in middle school next year. She had grown up so much, my daughter. Feeling a bit emotional, I told Kate that Tom and I would be having a serious talk soon. I also mentioned that divorce might be a possibility. Although I hadn't told her today was the day, smart Kate had figured it out. Perhaps her excuse about meeting a friend was a lie. She must have left the house early and waited at this courthouse.
Kate! Convince Mom not to do something stupid.
Still thinking Kate knew nothing, Tom said that. However, Kate's sharp gaze made Tom's shoulder twitch. Dad, I know everything. That's why I can't be with you anymore. Kate. A dad who gives his daughter strange drugs is scary. As soon as Kate said that firmly and loudly, the atmosphere in the courthouse changed. There was a stir, and the looks from those around us became harsh.
Didn't that girl just say she was given drugs?
By that father? Isn't that serious? The murmurs of the people reached Tom's ears, making him turn pale. And then, "Excuse me. Can we have a word?"
Huh? The police?
A police officer who happened to be there approached us. The officer grabbed Tom's arm as he tried to escape.
I've been concerned since earlier. Her comment really caught my attention. I'm sorry, but could you and your daughter come with me too?
Yes. Things were escalating quickly. But perhaps this was a good turn of events. With his arm still held by the officer, Tom's face turned even paler.
I didn't do anything.
We'll hear more at the station, so let's go. Okay. With the stern officer glaring at him, even Tom couldn't resist. He silently began to walk beside the officer. Once quiet, Tom was put into a different police car from us and taken to an interrogation room. Kate and I spoke with another officer and submitted evidence. The hospital was also contacted, and Paul cooperated with his testimony. It became increasingly difficult for Tom to escape the situation. Tom was eventually arrested. The interrogation took several days. During that time, I made sure to submit the divorce papers again. I was relieved to gain custody smoothly. Tom had done something truly unforgivable. The moving process was also done hastily. I decided to move to a place Tom wouldn't know while he was still detained. Luckily, there was an available apartment near Kate's school, so I signed the lease. But staying so close might mean Tom could find us once released. I still had that worry. What if Tom barges in again? However, such worries turned out to be unnecessary. Tom wasn't just detained, he was indicted. The reason was Tom's job at a pharmaceutical company. During the interrogation, questioning about drug management and experiment data revealed the company's overall misconduct. Poor drug management, falsified experimental data, and a different manufacturing process than reported to the authorities. All these were extremely malicious, and what seemed like a family issue turned out to have nationwide implications. The police took this seriously and changed the way they handled the case. Tom, holding an important position in the company, was seen as highly responsible and was indicted. The scandal at a major pharmaceutical company became big news and was sensationally covered by the media for a while. I could only watch in stunned silence. In the end, Tom was fined and sentenced to 2 years in prison. I felt genuinely relieved that I had divorced him before it came to this point. If Paul hadn't urged me to get a divorce back then, our family might have been stigmatized for having a criminal in the family. I feel bad for Tom, but I didn't want to be involved. I can't thank Paul enough for his advice. I felt relieved, but there was one problem. Our household income suddenly dropped. Regrettably, our family had been relying on Tom's high income. I'm taking him to court to ensure he pays child support, but I never know when he might stop paying. I also looked for a full-time job, but it was hard to find one quickly. We were facing financial hardship. Just when I was feeling hopeless about our financial future, I got a call from an unexpected person. It was from Tom's mother, my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, Sarah, lives alone far away. She's always been a rather cold person who doesn't involve herself much in her son's family affairs. When I attended family meetings as Tom's second wife, she never seemed very interested. I don't really know much about what kind of person Sarah is. Sarah spoke calmly on the phone. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I'm really sorry Tom did that. No, it's... Even though I did it to protect Kate, I knew that I had been the one to push Tom into a corner. I was prepared to be blamed by Sarah, Tom's mother. But Sarah didn't seem to have any intention of blaming me.
I should have opposed his second marriage. I was worried about Kate and thought it would be good for her to have a mother.
But I'm done with Tom. Then, Sarah offered to give Kate a living inheritance. I was surprised by her sudden offer. Are you sure, Sarah? It's fine.
I've already saved for my old age, and I was thinking of leaving the rest of my estate to my only son, Tom, but now.
Sarah spoke with a hint of sadness in her voice, explaining that she had been receiving frequent letters from Tom in prison. I thought they might be letters of affection for his mother, but they weren't. They were demands for money and requests for job placements. I was thoroughly disgusted with Tom, burdening his mother even in her old age.
He would just waste it if I gave it to him. I'd rather give it to my granddaughter, Kate.
Sarah. I realized I had misunderstood Sarah. She seemed uninterested, but she genuinely cared.
Of course, we'll keep this a secret from Tom. I'll tell him I used it all myself. Thank you so much, Sarah.
I thanked her repeatedly. Of course, I couldn't rely solely on this inheritance. I eventually found a full-time job and started anew. Apparently, after Tom was released, he tried to find Sarah, but she had already moved into a nursing home, so he couldn't locate her. No wonder. I was the one who arranged her admission. We also moved for the second time when Kate started middle school. Everyone in town knew about the court troubles, so we decided to move far away. Kate was happy to move and start fresh in middle school. Now, Tom has no idea where either his parent or his wife and daughter are. It seems sad that he has been abandoned by both, but it's his own fault for trying to conduct inhumane experiments on his daughter. People who don't value their family won't be valued by them. It's as simple as that. Tom had to learn this lesson the hard way. And as the years passed, Kate turned 18. Kate had grown into a young woman and had already surpassed my height. Today, Kate is leaving home. Kate, who is heading to college in Boston, is about to start living on her own. Worried, I kept giving her advice at the door before she left. Kate gave me a wry smile.
I'm going to be fine. Mom, you should focus on your own happiness.
She leaned in close as if sharing a secret.
I gave Paul a little nudge to ask you out. What? I trust him with you, Mom. Bye now.
Kate laughed, waved, and walked out the door. Actually, since then, Paul has been looking out for us in many ways. Sometimes he takes us out for meals or gives us gifts. I was taken aback. Kate really has grown up. No, she's already 18. An adult. Her thoughtful words about caring for me made me happy. My sweet, considerate Kate. The memories of the time spent with my beloved daughter are enough to make me feel fulfilled. Feeling content, I looked up at the sky from the doorway. There, the clear blue sky stretched out endlessly.
This shop looks like it has so many delicious things,
the elderly lady said cheerfully, speaking to her husband standing beside her. Most of the customers who visited the friendly bakery were familiar faces from the neighborhood, but the elderly couple who came in that day were new.
Huh? What is this feeling?
I felt a strange sense of nostalgia and comfort that was hard to explain in words. Listening to the couple's interaction, I felt an inexplicable sense of ease. The nostalgic sound of my grandmother Dolly's gentle, smiling voice, where have I seen these two before? I wondered. Come to think of it, the husband kept glancing outside the store, and that's when I noticed someone else standing outside. A woman in her 60s was walking back and forth in front of the store, occasionally glancing our way, but whenever our eyes met, she would quickly look away and walk away briskly. Yet after a while, she would come back and look at us again.
Hey, why don't you come in too?
The impatient husband called out to the woman.
Yes, come on in already.
And the elderly lady joined in. The elderly lady turned back to me with a smile. She's our daughter.
I'll have the jam bread. Please give me the jam bread.
The woman entered the store hesitantly, covering her face with her hands. As I was packing the jam bread, the elderly lady smiled happily.
Today is my grandchild's birthday. He loves jam bread.
Her face lit up with happiness.
What a coincidence! It's my birthday today too. I've loved jam bread since I was a child.
She laughed, but then looked at my name tag. Oh my, you're... And suddenly burst into tears. My name is Blair, a 40-year-old single mother. I currently work at Friendly Bakery while raising my daughter Crystal, who just started elementary school. I don't want Crystal to feel lonely, but the bakery job starts early in the morning, and the biggest problem is that I can't spend much time with her. Starting with early morning preparations and closing the store at 7 p.m., when I get home, Crystal always wants to be with me, but my exhausted body can't properly respond to her needs.
In the end, I'm making this child feel lonely too.
I constantly reflect on this while watching my sleeping child's face. My family situation has always been different compared to other families. I barely remember seeing Dad at home. Whether I was going to school in the morning, coming back from school, or even going to bed, Dad was never home. Occasionally, he would come home as if he remembered us, but he would take cash from Mom's wallet and leave without even looking at my face. Since I was little, I understood that Dad is like that, and I thought it was normal. However, one Sunday, when I encountered a friend walking happily with her family in town, I began to suspect for the first time that my family might be a bit unusual. My friend, with a delighted expression, said,
"We're going to a restaurant with Dad and Mom."
When I asked,
"Is today a special occasion?" she shook her head and replied, "We do this every week."
The next day, when I shared this with my classmates, everyone said in unison,
"Isn't that normal? Blair, isn't it the same for you?"
They looked at me as if I were an oddity. Dad hardly ever came home, but Mom was also rarely at home in my memory. Mom was an insurance saleswoman, and it wasn't uncommon for some clients to be available only in the evening, which meant she often came home late.
By then, I would already be in bed, but the sound of the front door opening and closing and her footsteps would wake me. "Mom!" I would call out, and she would simply say, "You're still awake? Go to bed."
Without any meaningful conversation, I would fall asleep again, and when I woke up in the morning, Mom had already left for work. Breakfast would be prepared on the dining table, and I would eat it alone. Feeling inferior due to my vastly different home environment compared to my friends, I began to distance myself from them. After school, I would head straight home without speaking to anyone, and immerse myself in playing house alone in the empty house. Seeing this, my maternal grandmother, Dolly, invited me, saying, "Why don't you come play at our house?" From then on, my place was my grandparents' house, a bit away from my home. When I was playing house alone, Dolly Grandma would suddenly join in with a girlish voice, saying, "Let me join you, Blair." When I got tired of playing house, Grandpa Thomas would come back from the field work, and the three of us would play old maid or solve riddles from a book Thomas bought on his walk.
"I bought jam bread, let's wash our hands and eat together."
When I got tired, Dolly Grandma would bring out jam bread she bought from a nearby bakery, and the three of us would enjoy it together. My grandparents would share one jam bread, and I would bite into a whole one, saying,
It's delicious.
To which Dolly Grandma would reply,
It's delicious.
the taste of jam bread was, of course, delicious, but more than that, I can confidently say now as an adult that spending time with my grandparents was truly happy for me. Occasionally, when Mom came home early from work, she would, for some reason, hand me a capsule toy, saying, "Here's a souvenir."
I don't want this,
I would say, unable to figure out how to deal with Mom, and couldn't express my gratitude with a simple thank you. Yet, Mom would persistently bring capsule toys each time, handing them to me. As a child, I couldn't understand why Mom kept doing this, but now I think it might have been Mom's awkward way of expressing her love. Dad and Mom eventually started arguing incessantly, even when they were at home. There were times when I would wake up in my bedroom to the sound of their shouting.
You're always like this. Even when you go to work, you never bring back any decent salary. Shut up. It's my money. I can spend it however I want.
It felt like they had those exchanges every night. Eventually, they seemed to stop caring altogether, their voices lost their intensity, and they stopped fighting altogether, barely speaking to each other. One day, Mom left the house without telling me anything and never came back. With a huge void in my heart from Mom's absence, my paternal grandmother Flora would say,
She abandoned you. She chose her job over the child she gave birth to. She's a failed mom.
I heard her badmouth Mom every day. Desperate and devastated by Mom's sudden disappearance, I ran to my maternal grandparents' house to fill the hole in my heart, but there was a for sale sign in front of the house. Unable to understand its meaning at the time, I entered the house without permission to look for my grandparents, but there was no sign of them. I believed they were out somewhere and would be back soon, so I waited for hours, but they never returned. As night fell, fear and anxiety overwhelmed me, and I started crying out loud, "Grandma! Grandpa!" Someone in the neighborhood must have called the police, as a police officer arrived and said,
You can't be in there. Come out and stop playing in places you shouldn't be. If you don't go home soon, a ghost might come out.
He said this jokingly, but I refused to move.
What a troublesome child,
Flora said irritably as she pulled my hand and took me back home. Her voice is still etched in my memory even after decades. Dad continued to be absent frequently, sometimes being away for days. With Mom no longer there to restrain him, Dad probably felt freer to come and go as he pleased. When I reached middle school, Dad, either lacking confidence in raising a child alone or never having considered my well-being, unhesitatingly placed me in a children's home. The social worker repeatedly asked Dad,
Are you sure about this?
But Dad, annoyed, waved it off, saying, Yes, yes, like swatting away a fly. The social worker looked exasperated. I had always been alone, so I didn't expect any affection from Dad. Being placed in a children's home didn't make me sad or hurt. In the children's home, I could take care of myself and had no problems. There were many younger children, and wanting to lessen the burden on the busy staff, I took care of them like they were my own siblings.
Blair, you're such a help. Thank you always,
the staff would say, but for me, having people to talk to and keep me company was a relief from loneliness. Interacting with children who had various backgrounds made me realize that I wasn't special. Seeing children who relied on me made me want to do my best for them. One day, when jam bread was served for a snack, the sight of it brought back memories of the warm and gentle days I spent with my grandparents, and I suddenly burst into tears.
Blair, why are you crying?
I don't know. Maybe because I just remembered some precious moments from the past. As I took a bite of the jam bread, the texture of the bread and the sweetness of the jam filled my mouth.
This is delicious. I've never had bread this good before.
Seeing the children with their mouths full of jam bread and their beaming smiles, I began to dream of working at a bakery one day. After graduating from middle school, I chose a high school with a home economics department. I had always been confident in my cooking skills, but this school also offered classes in baking from scratch, making it an ideal environment for someone aspiring to become a baker. After graduating high school and leaving the children's home, I immediately landed my dream job at a bakery. At the same time, I found a small but perfectly sized apartment for living on my own. The small bakery, Friendly Bakery, was run by a couple who were both cheerful and kind, treating me like a real daughter.
The concept of this shop is to bring delicious food to families and see the joy on their faces. Treat each customer as if they were a beloved family member.
Victor, the owner, gave me this guidance when I first started working, knowing nothing yet. I didn't fully understand what family meant at that moment, but I thought of the faces of the children at the children's home. No matter how early the morning, remembering those kids' happy faces would instantly dispel any hardship, and I found the preparation work surprisingly bearable. When a customer with children would say, "The bread here is delicious," I couldn't help but smile at the register, and Victor would compliment me, saying, "That's a great smile." One day, while admiring a mother and child buying jam bread to take home, Victor gently approached me and asked,
"Blair, I've always wondered, do you have a special attachment to jam bread?"
"It's a taste that reminds me of my grandparents. I spent a lot of time with them when I was a child."
I recounted my childhood and the circumstances leading to my time at the children's home to Victor. After hearing my story, Victor prefaced his question with, "If it's okay," and then asked,
"If you could see your grandparents again, would you want to? What about your mom? Would you want to live with her?"
Caught off guard by such unexpected questions, I was at a loss for words. If I were honest, there were many times I wished to see them again. But I felt I shouldn't want that. I repeatedly told myself that my grandparents and mom had abandoned me and that meeting them again was impossible.
"No, I haven't thought about that at all,"
I replied, avoiding Victor's gaze so he wouldn't read my mind.
"I see. If that's what you think, then all right."
Victor responded in a way that left it unclear whether he believed me or not. 10 years after I started working at the bakery, there were significant changes in my personal life. I fell in love with a regular male customer who always came to buy from us, and we got married 6 months after dating. For several years, we struggled to have children, but at 34, I finally gave birth to our long-awaited daughter, Crystal. However, right after having the baby, my husband's attitude towards me became cold, and we constantly argue over trivial matters, leading to a quick divorce. The custody battle was lengthy and contentious, but thanks to a skilled lawyer introduced by Victor, I managed to keep Crystal. Even so, seeing Crystal's sad expressions as a young child made me think of myself at that age.
"Am I making her feel the same way I did?"
I would reflect while watching Crystal sleep. One day, as Crystal and I were having dinner, my just starting elementary school daughter was curiously staring at a small rubber toy.
"What's that? Did we have something like this?"
Puzzled by the unfamiliar toy doll, I noticed a capsule toy container lying on the floor and asked, "Did you buy this?"
"I got it from a lady I didn't know earlier." "A lady? Where did you meet her? What was she like?" "She was standing in front of our house when I got back from school. She looked a lot older than you, Mom. She seemed to know you. She gave it to me."
I wondered, who could it be, and thought of various acquaintances, considering it might be someone related to the children's home. But I warned Crystal, "Don't go with anyone you don't know, okay?" The next day, as I stood in the shop as usual, an elderly couple I had never seen around here before walked in. Most of the customers at Friendly Bakery were familiar faces from the neighborhood, But occasionally we got visitors from far away who had heard about the bakery's reputation. I assumed this elderly couple was one of those customers, but then I was struck by a strange feeling of familiarity and comfort that I couldn't quite explain.
This shop looks like it has so many delicious things,
the elderly lady said cheerfully, speaking to her husband standing beside her. Yes, there was something inexplicably soothing about her voice as well. A nostalgic sound, as if I had heard it somewhere long ago, combined with her gentle smile. Where had I seen these two before? I noticed the husband kept glancing outside the shop. I initially thought he was eager to leave, but the elderly lady didn't seem to mind. That's when I noticed another person standing outside the shop. A woman in her 60s was walking back and forth in front of the store, occasionally looking our way, but when our eyes met, she quickly looked away and walked off. Then, after a while, she came back and was looking at us again.
"Hey, why don't you come in too?"
The impatient husband called out to the woman, and the elderly lady joined in.
"Yes, come on in already."
The elderly lady turned back to me with a smile. "She's our daughter."
"Everything looks so good. I'll take some jam bread, please."
I thought it was strange for someone her age to be so shy, but the couple's daughter timidly entered the shop, covering her face with her hands. As I packed the bread,
"It's our grandchild's birthday today. She always loved jam bread. I'm so happy to think we'll see her again."
the elderly lady smiled happily.
"Oh, that's quite a coincidence. Today is actually my birthday too. And I've always loved jam bread since I was a child."
The elderly lady laughed. "Really? That's wonderful." But then she looked at my name tag.
"Oh my, you're..."
And suddenly her voice trembled. I was confused and asked, "Are you all right? What's wrong?" But instead of answering, the elderly lady murmured, "I'm so glad you're well. I'm so glad I lived to see this day."
Blair! Blair, right? It's me. Do you recognize me?"
She suddenly started crying. Every time I encountered the elderly lady's gentle face and voice, I felt an inescapable tightening in my chest. A cherished presence that had once enveloped me with warmth, now seemingly far away.
"Could it be Grandma? Grandma Dolly? You remembered. Blair."
Saying this, the elderly lady, my grandma, warmly wrapped my hands in hers. So, the woman who was constantly averting her gaze behind her was Mom, right? Yes. I'm your mom. The woman finally spoke up. Since it had been over 30 years since we last saw each other, I didn't immediately recognize the three of them when they entered the store. But there was no doubt that the three people in front of me were my grandparents and my mom. With trembling hands, I handed the items to Grandma. "I still have work to do, so later. We'll be waiting in the park over there. It doesn't matter how late it gets, we want to talk to you." Dolly Grandma looked into my eyes and spoke firmly. Victor, who had seen everything from the back of the shop, came over to me and said, "I told them about your apartment. I hope it was all right. I had a feeling you actually wanted to see your mom and grandparents." "Yes, it's fine. Thank you. Looks like we don't have many customers today, so let's close up early," Victor suggested, and I changed into my casual clothes and ran out of the back door without even grabbing my bag. When I brought the three of them back to my apartment, it did feel a bit cramped in my one-room apartment, but it might have been just the right size to fill the emotional void that had separated our family for so long. When I opened the door, Crystal, who had just gotten back from school, was doing her homework and exclaimed,
"Oh, it's the auntie who gave me the toy yesterday."
She pointed at my mom. "How did you find out I was living in this town?" While apologizing to me repeatedly, my mom explained the events that led her here after her divorce. My dad, Scott, worked at a small-town factory, but he would spend all his wages on drinks the very day he got paid, never bringing any money home.
What about Blair? Raising a child costs money, you know?
My mom, who had to raise the young Blair, started working in place of my dad. But my dad's wasteful habits never improved, and he started spending more and more days away from home. Finally, unable to take it anymore, my mom asked my dad for a divorce. During the divorce mediation, my dad's mom, Flora, said,
"If you really want a divorce, you have to leave Blair behind."
Mom didn't want to give me up, who she had carried and given birth to, but Flora told her, "That child hates you," and she believed it.
That's not true at all.
Hearing this made me incredibly angry, but my mom kept nodding, saying, "Yes, you're right. But back then, I truly believed you hated me. You didn't seem happy even when I bought you toys." Despite my mom's clumsy way of showing affection, it seems she misunderstood my true feelings until the very end of their divorce. Looking back, I should never have let you go. After that, she threw herself into her work, as if to cut off the memories of her time with her daughter. But 30 years later, one day, she happened to run into Dad on the street. To Mom, Dad was like a stranger by then, but she was still worried about me, their only daughter. When she pressed Dad about it, he shamelessly said that he had put me in a facility. "I had no idea you had been placed in a facility. I'm really sorry." After that, Mom switched to a job with more flexible hours and, with the help of my grandparents, started tracking my movements from the children's home, eventually finding me at the friendly bakery. "We've been looking for you. We finally found out that you were working at that bakery. You were out on delivery, so we asked the people at the store for your apartment address." My grandmother's warm, gentle hands wrapped around mine. "Why did you and Grandma leave without telling me anything?" In Grandma's place, Mom answered, "I insisted that they do it. After divorcing your dad, I stayed at my parents' house for a while, but seeing you living nearby made me desperately want to hug you. But I thought you hated me, so I figured staying in the same town would only make it harder, and that's why I decided to leave with my parents. I was hurting too. Even after I couldn't see you anymore, I kept thinking about you. How are you doing now? Are you eating well? Not catching a cold? That's all I ever thought about." Saying this, Dolly Grandma closed her eyes tightly and looked up at the ceiling, but the tears streaming down her cheeks didn't stop.
"Thank you, Grandma. I had no idea you were looking for me."
I had been convinced that both Mom and my grandparents had abandoned me. But knowing that they had taken the time to find me, my long-suppressed emotions burst forth, and I couldn't stop the tears from flowing.
"Let's live together again, okay? Let's do that."
Mom stroked my shoulder and said, but I couldn't bring myself to say yes. Mom hadn't wanted to let me go. A series of unfortunate events had led to that regrettable decision. Even though I understood that, my feelings couldn't immediately accept her offer to live together again. One day was too short a time to dispel the doubts I'd harbored towards Mom. "Let me think about it."
"Yes, of course. We're staying at a hotel right now, so call me whenever you feel ready."
With that, Mom left a note with her contact information and left with my grandparents. Crystal, who didn't know what was going on, looked worried and asked, "Are you okay, Mom?" I decided I shouldn't make her worry, so I forced myself to switch gears and said,
"Are you hungry? What do you want for dinner?" "I want pizza. I love the pizza you make, Mom."
Crystal hugged me around my waist with a big smile on her face, and I promised myself, I will never let go of this child. While making pizza, I remembered my elementary school days. The morning Mom left home. When I woke up, there was a pre-made pizza on the dining table with a message from Mom saying, "Heat it up and eat it." Thinking about that, I accidentally set the oven timer wrong and burned it a little. "Sorry, Crystal. I burnt it a bit, please forgive me." "Mom, you just can't help it, can you?" Crystal sighed and laughed. I wondered if I might be just like Mom was back then. I feared I might be making Crystal feel lonely too. After dinner, while I was doing the dishes, Crystal took something out of her school bag and said, "Mom, look over here." She snuck up on me quietly and called out. As I turned off the faucet and looked back as she asked, Crystal had drawn a big picture of me on a piece of construction paper with a message that said, "Good luck at work."
Happy birthday, Mom. I love you, Mom. Thank you.
I was so happy about Crystal's casual kindness that I felt a warm emotion welling up inside me.
Mom, are you crying? Why? Did something bad happen?
I wiped my tears and said,
Of course not, I'm just happy.
But Crystal, looking puzzled, asked, "Do people cry even when they're happy?"
Sometimes they do. You know, seeing you grow up healthy and happy is my greatest joy.
I had been so caught up with work from morning till night that I hadn't made time to care for my family or for Crystal. I thought Crystal might hate me for that, but she told me she loved me.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you for being born my child.
The next day was Saturday, and the store was extremely busy. But Victor, knowing the situation, kindly said, "A young part-timer just joined, so why don't you take a break for once?" So, I decided to take Crystal out to town. When I entered the restaurant holding Crystal's hand, Mom and my grandparents were already waiting inside. "Thank you for coming. I was a bit worried that you wouldn't." Grandpa, usually so reserved, admitted with a touch of relief. Crystal, feeling a bit nervous seeing the three of them, greeted them with a timid hello. "Well, aren't you a polite one? Your name is Crystal, right? How old are you now?" "I'm 6 years old." "6, huh? Blair was just about your age when she started living apart from us," Dolly Grandma said, her expression a mix of the sadness from being separated and the joy of this reunion. Though Crystal was tense meeting her grandmother and great-grandparents for the first time, she soon relaxed and started chatting eagerly by the time her kids' meal arrived. Looking back, I can't recall a single time my parents took me to a restaurant when I was a child. I never want Crystal to experience such loneliness.
It might be presumptuous of me to ask, but
Mom began, after exchanging several nods with my grandparents.
if you like, would you live with us? We could buy a new house, instead of the apartment you're in now, and live happily together. What do you think?
If Crystal is okay with it. I found myself answering before I could think. I patted Crystal's head.
How about it? Would you like to live with these grandmas and grandpa?
Yes. I would. Mom's shoulders shook as she covered her face with a handkerchief. Meanwhile, I heard through the grapevine that my dad, Scott, even after retirement, still spent too much time and money on leisure and had been cut off by his own parents. Rumor has it that a woman who once cared for him had left, and he was now living frugally in a small apartment, depleting his retirement savings. Frankly, as a family completely severed from him, we couldn't care less about his old age. To be honest, I still don't know how much I can forgive and trust Mom, who abandoned me. I'm unsure if we can make it work as a family in the future, and fears constantly linger. It's not easy to fill the hole in my heart. But perhaps it can be done slowly. If we can gradually mend our relationship. If one day I can genuinely feel glad to be part of this family. Instead of trying to reclaim the lost time, let's create new memories together. Now, surrounded by a warm family, I am happily and joyfully living each day.
I'm fine with whatever. Do whatever you want.
What? That's not helpful at all.
My husband, Thomas, and I were at a meeting to discuss our wedding ceremony. We had already submitted our marriage license, but we hadn't held the ceremony yet. Even though I was listening with growing excitement, my enthusiasm quickly faded. For now, why not go with this?
What do you mean by this?
I mean, the middle plan should be fine.
Didn't you say it could be something a little nicer?
Thomas was the one who suggested having a ceremony in the first place. But now, his attitude was unbelievable. As the tension grew, our wedding planner, Nichols, made a suggestion.
In that case, the quality of the meal could be reduced a bit, and instead, we could increase the number of events.
Nichols explained the alternative plan politely, but Thomas showed no interest.
Let's go with that. Is that okay with you?
Yeah. I almost sighed but held it back. Then suddenly, he stood up.
Where are you going? We're not finished yet. We've done enough, haven't we?
I'll head home first.
With that, he left the room. As I got up to follow him, someone grabbed my arm. Startled, I almost fell backward.
Is something wrong?
I turned around to see Nichols looking serious. I have something important to discuss.
What?
I followed him to another room. Still worried about Thomas. So, what is it?
This is very hard to say, but Mr. Thomas is actually...
His words made me collapse to my knees on the spot. At the same time, a burning desire for revenge against Thomas ignited within me. I am Ellen, a very ordinary office worker. I am 32 years old this year. Now, I am living a peaceful, if ordinary, life with my husband, Thomas, whom I married 2 years ago. Thomas and I were high school classmates and moved away from our hometown after graduation.
Ellen, it's been a while.
Thomas? When did you come back here?
I just got back last week.
We ran into each other by chance after work one day.
So, you've been here all this time, Ellen.
Why did you come back here? There was a slight pause.
Well, the atmosphere over there didn't suit me.
What does that even mean? After that, we started hanging out once a week. Since we had a good relationship to begin with, it was fun. And about 2 months after our reunion. One evening, as we were having drinks after work.
Hey, why don't we live together?
What?
I really enjoy being with you, Ellen. Is that okay?
I didn't hesitate to say yes at that moment. Being together more made me want to spend even more time with him. Soon after, we found a new place and started living together.
Looking forward to this.
Same here. I had never lived with someone before, so I was a little excited. It was fun, but there was something that bothered me. I had never asked Thomas what he did for a living. I had asked him before. What? My job? Oh, I'm helping out my colleague.
Oh. Specifically?
Well, various things. Anyway, let's go eat. I know a great place.
Oh, okay.
He dodged the question skillfully, and I never got a clear answer. As work got busier, I forgot about it. About a year of living together passed. And one day, when I got home from work.
Welcome back. Have a seat.
What? Following Thomas's instructions, I sat down and saw a table set with drinks and a lavish meal. What's this for? It's not my birthday or anything. Then, Thomas pulled out a small box from his pocket. Seeing it, my heart raced with anticipation.
Will you marry me? I think it's about time.
Yes.
I'd love to.
But this turned out to be the wrong choice for me. I was over the moon about being proposed to. Then, Thomas looked apologetic.
Is something wrong?
Could we wait to have the wedding?
A wedding? Well, I'm not really particular about it, so we can think about it later.
Really? Thank you. The fact that I could be with Thomas as his wife was more important to me than the wedding. The next day, we went to the courthouse and got our marriage certificate. We were officially married. I was thrilled about our new life together. But I noticed something strange 2 weeks after we got married. I'm home. You're late. Oh, yeah. There was a lot going on. He felt like a stranger. But that wasn't the only thing. Even when I spoke to him, he seemed distant and only gave half-hearted responses.
Hey? Are you listening?
Huh? Sorry, I wasn't listening. I'm just really tired. I'm going to bed. Oh, okay. Thomas went to the bedroom, clearly preoccupied with something else. Then, I noticed a small bag left where he had been sitting. Thinking he might need it, I went to give it to him. You dropped this. Thomas, who was lying down, snatched it from me with an inhuman speed.
What was that?
I was too stunned to move. He glared at me with a face I'd never seen before.
Did you look inside?
Inside? No, I didn't. Good. Thanks. He lay back down. I returned to the living room, but the bag stayed on my mind. I couldn't muster the courage to ask more after seeing his expression. The next day, he acted as if nothing had happened. Oh, by the way, I'll be late again tonight.
What about dinner?
I don't need it. That night. He didn't come home even after midnight. Since I had work the next day, I decided to go to bed. Then, I heard the front door open and a thud. Rushing to the entrance, I found Thomas collapsed.
Are you okay?
Huh? Thomas was so drunk he couldn't even speak properly. There was a strange sweet, almost pungent smell coming from him. I managed to get him to the living room and gave him some water. He had never been in such a bad state from drinking before, so I considered calling an ambulance. The bag. What? The bag? After a while, he kept muttering the bag like a mantra. I realized it was the one I saw before. I searched his bag. Just as I was about to take out the bag.
What are you doing?
Startled by his sudden clear shout, I dropped the bag in surprise.
What do you think you're doing? You said the bag. Don't do things on your own.
I was getting annoyed at being unfairly blamed.
You said the bag, didn't you? What's even in it? It's none of your business. If it's so important, why don't you keep it in a safe or something?
The next moment, I felt pain in my cheek. I touched my cheek, not understanding what had happened. When I looked at Thomas, his eyes were bloodshot.
It's because you keep meddling. If you do this again, it won't end with just this.
The intensity of his anger left me speechless. He stood up, staggered, and left the house. I was left alone, rubbing my slapped cheek. After that, he started coming home less and less. He would return when I was leaving for work.
Oh, heading to work now? Good luck.
Are you off today?
Huh? Oh, yeah, it's my day off.
And he was always drunk. There was also a strong, unfamiliar smell around him. I had smelled it before. It seemed like perfume, but I couldn't place it at the time. One day, amidst these ongoing, tense days, Thomas made a surprising suggestion. We barely talked anymore, yet he had a strange smile on his face.
As a way to make up for everything, how about we have a wedding ceremony?
A ceremony?
Yeah, a wedding. We never had one, right?
Well, that's true. But why now all of a sudden? I was cautious because there had been no indication of this.
Because it's a nice thing to do. Why not?
Okay. I was afraid of what might happen if I refused.
Then let's go look at venues this Sunday.
I should have been happy, but Thomas's overly friendly and kind demeanor left me confused. Sunday came.
So, where are we going?
Just follow me. Without knowing where we were headed, I simply followed Thomas. We arrived in front of a building displaying wedding dresses.
Here?
Yeah, it's a nice place, right? Let's go in. Inside, there were various wedding dresses on display. Seeing all this, I couldn't help but feel a bit excited. Then, a woman approached us.
Would you like a tour?
As I hesitated.
Yes, please.
Certainly. This way, please. We moved to another room where they explained the wedding plans. I was unsure about which plan to choose, but Thomas was happily chatting with the planner. Feeling a bit annoyed, I turned to Thomas.
Hey, what about this one?
Oh, it's nice. But I'd go with this one.
But it's expensive.
Really? Then maybe the middle plan. I hadn't expected much, but Thomas actively gave his opinions. It started to feel like we might have a good wedding. That day ended with us just deciding the rough outline. On the way back, he seemed to be in a good mood. Feeling hopeful, I tried talking to him. Hey, about the wedding dress. Yeah. Which one do you think is best? Yeah. No matter how many times I tried, his response was always yeah. I wondered what had happened to his earlier enthusiasm.
Are you even listening?
I asked more firmly this time. I'm busy right now. Don't talk to me. But he was just fiddling with his phone, not looking busy at all. Yet he acted like I was the one at fault. The thought of divorce crossed my mind. While I had a strong desire for the wedding, I also wanted to show my parents me in a wedding dress. Torn between these feelings, I realized Thomas didn't care about any of this. We have another meeting next week. You'll come, right? Yeah, I'll be there. And we returned to our usual, gloomy routine. I couldn't wait for a week to pass. That day, I felt sick and had to leave work early. All I wanted was to get home and lie down. Huh? Why are you home?
That's what I should be asking you. What happened to work? I wasn't feeling well, so I left early. Then you should have told me.
I didn't think you'd be home. Then, I noticed something. There were 2 cups on the table. When I left this morning, they weren't there. Did someone come over? Huh? No, no one came over. But there are 2 cups here. Thomas looked like he had been caught. It seemed like he was trying to come up with an excuse. Oh, my coworker stopped by. But you just said no one came over. Thomas seemed increasingly frustrated.
I said it was a coworker. Can you just drop it?
I tried to press further, but I felt dizzy and unsteady on my feet. You came home because you weren't feeling well, right? You should go to bed. With that, Thomas carried me to the bedroom. My fever must have gone up, because as soon as I was laid in bed, I fell into a deep sleep. Huh? When did I fall asleep? I looked at my phone, and it was already past 1 a.m. I had been asleep for nearly 6 hours. I headed to the living room and found Thomas there. Are you feeling better? Yeah. Don't push yourself. Do you want something to eat? After what happened earlier, I didn't know what to say. Thomas spoke kindly, as if nothing had happened. I'm sorry about earlier. Work's just been stressful. But really, it was just a coworker. Please believe me. He seemed like a different person. Okay, I understand. I forgave him. Looking back, maybe I shouldn't have. But at that moment, his kindness meant the world to me. Especially since I had little experience with relationships, he was so important to me.
You should get some more sleep. It's still the middle of the night.
Yeah, you're right. Good night.
Good night.
I went back to bed and quickly fell asleep again. She didn't suspect anything. She's really a fool. I thought I heard Thomas talking to someone, but I soon drifted off again.
We have another wedding planning session on Sunday. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. It's fine. Then, during our final planning session, something happened.
Isn't the usual person here?
I'm sorry, but they are off today. My name is Nichols. I'll be your planner today.
Oh, I see. Nice to meet you.
I glanced at Thomas and he seemed a bit annoyed. Is everything all right? Yeah. Let's just get this over with. As we went through the details, Thomas was just playing with his phone, not really participating. It made me question what the wedding was for. As the meeting was wrapping up.
So, shall we proceed like this?
Yes, thank you. I asked Thomas for his agreement. Is this okay? Whatever. You decide.
Huh? That's not helpful at all.
My excitement deflated quickly. Just keep it simple.
Simple? What's simple?
Not too fancy.
It doesn't need to be extravagant. What? We've already made all the plans. Now you want to change them? You said you didn't want anything expensive, right?
Originally, it was Thomas who suggested having the ceremony. But now, I can't believe his attitude. As the tension grew, our planner Nichols made a suggestion. If we lower the grade of the meal, we can increase the number of events. He politely offered an alternative, but he showed no interest. Let's go with that. It's fine, right? Yeah. I almost sighed but held it in. Then, Thomas suddenly stood up.
Where are you going? We're not done yet. It's enough already, isn't it? I'm heading home first. Wait!
But Thomas ignored me and left. What is wrong with him?
I'm sorry. I'll bring him back.
As I stood up to chase Thomas, my arm was grabbed. I nearly fell backward from the sudden pull. Yes. When I turned around, the planner Nichols, who had been smiling earlier, now had a serious expression. I have something important to discuss.
Important? What is it?
This isn't the place for it. Please come with me. Following Nichols' lead, I moved to another room. I was concerned about Thomas leaving, but this seemed more urgent. Nichols began to speak slowly. His expression looked almost apologetic. So, what's the matter?
It's very hard to say, but actually, Mr. Thomas has been up to something not good.
Not good. Last week, when we were fitting the outfits, I overheard a conversation. I was curious and went to check. He seemed hesitant to continue. Seeing this, I felt I needed to be brave and listen. Please, tell me.
All right. When I looked, he was talking to one of our employees, Ingram, who was handling your case until last week. What? I don't think their relationship is recent. They even kissed. What?
I fell to my knees at his words. Why? Though I'd suspected infidelity before, I never imagined it would be with our wedding planner. No, I couldn't have noticed.
Are you okay?
Yes. He offered me a hand. And it wasn't just the secret he was hiding. At that moment, a desire for revenge ignited within me.
Thank you for telling me.
What will you do?
Of course, revenge. But don't worry.
I won't trouble you. I went straight home. I called Thomas on the way, but he didn't answer. He wasn't home, so I waited for him. And then, I saw that bag on the table. Seeing it, I thought this was my chance. An hour later. Why are you so flustered?
Oh, it's nothing.
The moment he got home, he was restless and looking for something. Of course, I knew what it was. Is this what you're looking for?
You had it?
Honestly, I was scared, but my anger was stronger. I know what this is. The wedding planner Nichols told me. Nichols? Who's that? The person who handled us today. She heard you talking with Ingram.
What did she hear? Everything. About you kissing Ingram and planning to swindle me by pretending we were going to have a wedding.
Earlier, I heard from Nichols that Thomas and Ingram were planning to steal money together. Upon hearing this, he began to tremble slightly.
So, you found out, huh? What are you laughing at?
Even if you know now, you can't escape from me. I held my mobile phone in my hand, ready to call the police if necessary.
There's no use threatening me anymore. Just give it to me. No way. Do you really think it's okay to get involved in something like this? Shut up. Just hand it over.
Thomas, clearly frustrated to the max, threw something at me from nearby. Luckily, his aim was off, and it didn't hit me. Then I called the police.
Hey! What are you doing?
Of course, I'm calling the police. You're the one who can't escape, Thomas. You should run away, or do you want this?
Don't mess with me.
He tried to come at me, but tripped over the mess he had made in the room. Taking advantage of this, I ran into the bathroom. I locked myself in the bathroom and called the police.
Open up! There's no way I'm opening this door.
Thomas desperately tried to open the door, pounding and kicking it. Even though I was in the bathroom, I wasn't sure how long it would be safe. Then, I quietly checked the contents of the bag. There were still some uncertainties about what Nichols had told me. Sure enough, inside were dried plant fragments and some unfamiliar apparatus. There was also a sweet smell coming from it. I realized this was the smell I had noticed from him before. After about 15 minutes, I heard the front door open and someone entered. It seemed the police had arrived.
Hey! Let go! Don't touch me!
Outside the bathroom, there seemed to be a struggle between the police and Thomas. Then, everything went quiet, and there was a knock on the door. Are you okay? Yes. We've restrained him, so you can come out now. As I exited the bathroom, I saw Thomas in the living room, surrounded by police officers, looking downcast. I handed the bag Thomas had to the police. This is what he was carrying. Thank you. The police checked the contents and contacted someone. Soon after, more police arrived. Is this Mr. Thomas's item? Yes, he always carried it around like it was important. Then, right in front of Thomas, they began testing the contents. They put some of the plant fragments into a test tube, and it changed from clear to a purplish-blue color.
At 5:34 p.m., you are being arrested for violation of drug use.
Right before my eyes, Thomas was handcuffed. Strangely, I didn't feel sad at all. In fact, I could only think that he deserved it for deceiving me all this time.
You've ruined everything. Remember this. I never thought you were such a scumbag. You deserve to rot in prison. You just wait. I'll be back. Good luck with that.
And with that, Thomas was taken away by the police. I felt foolish for not acting sooner, even though I had noticed something was wrong. But now, I was free. I might not be able to have the wedding, but it's much better than continuing this life. What should I do now? First, I guess I should get a divorce. There's no time to wallow in sentimentality. There's still a lot to do. A few days later, I was on my way to the police station. The police had contacted me, and I needed to be tested as well. Of course, the result was negative. You can visit him now if you'd like. What would you like to do?
Of course, I will.
All right. I'll get back to you with the schedule details. I felt a bit excited. I was eager to know how things had progressed since then. And finally, a week later, the chance to meet face-to-face arrived. When I entered the visitation room, Thomas was a shadow of his former self. Good to see you. You look well.
This is what you call looking well? So, why are you here?
It's just an update. I'm currently finalizing our divorce. Also, I'm filing for alimony.
Alimony?
Yes. Because you were cheating, remember?
Do you have proof?
You'll find out soon enough. That's all I wanted to say.
Get out of here!
As I left the visitation room, I couldn't help but laugh. How far someone can fall after getting involved with drugs. Later, I heard from the police that the wedding planner, Ingram, had been arrested. They found the same kind of bag in her room. During interrogation, she was quite talkative, saying Thomas had introduced her to marijuana. In the end, she even admitted to the affair. The mystery of the 2 glasses was also solved. Now, I have to proceed with the alimony claim. The alimony claim was successfully recognized. Thanks to my lawyer, the divorce was finalized, and I was finally free. Since I originally leased the apartment, I terminated the contract and disposed of all of Thomas's belongings. With this, I'm considering moving. But before that, there's one place I need to go.
It's been a while, Miss Nichols.
You are.
Thank you so much for your help last time. It was all thanks to you, Nichols.
I didn't really do anything. You really saved me. And what about your husband?
Of course, we divorced. If I ever plan to get married again, I'll come here.
With that, I left the store. I later learned that before coming back here, he had been arrested for drugs again. Because of this, he received a prison sentence and is now behind bars. Knowing this, I can't help but laugh. I hope he never gets out. From now on, I will start a new life in a new place. Even though I am alone, I don't feel lonely. In fact, I'm looking forward to it immensely.